Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Privacy Chronicles podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Roy Kamp, and we will talk about privacy compliance in SaaS projects. I think it should be great. Kate, what do you think?
I think it would be wonderful. So thank you for visiting us, Roy, and I surely hope that we will have a different and interesting discussion.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, so
Wonderful.
let's start. Please, Roy, tell us a bit about yourself. What's your domain expertise and what do you actually do?
That's a fantastic question. Domain expertise is one of those wonderful, wide-ranging topics or phrases, I should say. Originally, I've been working in legal roles for a very long time, a variety of legal roles in various industries, primarily in the services industry, in facilities management, recruitment, PR. And then in 2000, I joined McAfee at the time. And shortly after McAfee, this was shortly after McAfee was acquired by Intel. So went through that whole integration within Intel, and then so in terms of domain expertise, I consider myself a generalist. I have been known to run around the office with a screwdriver trying to fix printers and shredders from time to time as well, but that's a different topic. And other than that, I've been dabbling in privacy on and off since my career started. And it wasn't until I joined McAfee that it really became formalized. Spent a lot of time with the security team at McAfee to understand how product security works and understanding the threat landscape. And then that then turned into kind of understanding privacy better, getting a more holistic view on privacy and how it impacted contracts. And then after that, it informed my view on negotiations, contract negotiations with customers and suppliers in particular. And it helped me develop a more kind of holistic and programmatic approach to negotiating contracts with customers. I left McAfee to join. At that point, just before I left McAfee, I was the DPO at McAfee. And then I joined Wayfair, where I was the DPO as well. And then about 18 months ago, I left Wayfair and joined UKG. For those who don't know, UKG is a human resources, human capital management SaaS provider.
Mhm.
And that's about it.
Yes, thank you very much for such detailed answers. So, as I see, you are very well connected to SaaS in frames of privacy. And at your current role, as I understand, you have a lot of personal data of employees, of candidates, all that stuff. And so I believe you will have a really great impact on our viewers' understanding on how what is the role and what are the challenges for DPO in SaaS projects. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on, Kate.
I only had one question because you mentioned that you're working for like human resources platform, right? So candidates and people and everyone who's working in the office, everyone is like very aware of the information being collected by HR people, including of everything that is going on in the firm. Everything will be recorded. Everyone is also very worried about this being recorded as well. But privacy is a perfect first touch with people when you are reaching out to them and explain that we will collect this and this and we will process so and so. So how to start doing privacy right? Like how to start your privacy compliance from scratch? What to focus on when you start working with HR platform, with people, and when you start, practically processing their data? What do you think?
So for me, the two pieces that are really critical, and it kind of starts depending on where you are in the life cycle. So it either starts at the development piece, as in the project development piece, or you've already implemented and you kind of come into it kind of halfway through the life cycle. But in both cases, I think the most important thing is understand, what is it you're doing? How are you doing it? And why are you doing it? Because once you have all of that information, you can then start to get to a place where it's not so scary anymore, because you know what data you're collecting, you know how you're collecting it and how you're securing it and how long you're keeping it for. And then you move to, why are we collecting it? And that kind of feeds into the principles, for instance, under GDPR in terms of data minimization. Are we collecting too much information? Do we need this information? Will we ever process the information? And if not, should we get rid of it and securely delete it? So I think privacy compliance in my experience has always been very much understanding the what, how, and the why. And once you have that, it helps you to negotiate the contract with the vendor properly, or if you're the vendor, it helps you understand what is it that we're selling to the customer. And then from a employee perspective and an employer perspective, it helps to build trust, because if you have the what, the how, and the why, it builds the trust between the employer and the employees to say, we're not just collecting all this data because we want this data,
because we want to spy on you and know everything that you are doing.
Absolutely, right. And we haven't even talked about kind of the whole AI piece, which is looming in this discussion as well. Employers, look, there's a lot of emphasis and interest in understanding employee emotions, how to retain, make the employees more productive, whether
more
it's
comfortable. Yeah.
Absolutely. And whether it's providing, Pizza Friday, or whether it's providing a PlayStation in the office, or whatever it is, it's all these things kind of feed into how do we bring everyone together so that we're all kind of successful together. So that's why, like I said, it's the what, the how, and the why.
Yeah, really interesting. This kind of bringing Pizza Fridays to understand what makes people happy, and all this in frames of personal data. Yeah.
By taking this pizza bite, you're agreeing to your data being collected by the HR department.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so actually we talked about some kind of journeys. For example, in SaaS projects, we have customer journey map, and we can see how a user moves through our website. On the other hand, we can have this candidate journey map, actually, or employee journey map in frames of personal data. Actually, do you use such things as maybe privacy touches at these maps to understand, maybe to impact the privacy or to fix some things and so on? Do you think in this measures, this guy has, or this girl has this map on our product, or as an employee, so we should contact him or her here, there, and then somewhere else?
Yes, if I understood you correctly, I think it is important. I think the map, the journey is absolutely critical, because again, it kind of feeds into the how and the why and the what we're doing, so that we can start adjusting things and looking at things and saying, because if you look at a lot of the privacy laws that have come through since May 2018 have had some form of accountability principle baked into it. And if you have that accountability principle baked into it, you can start to ask yourself, what is it that we're doing, and how do we iterate what we're doing to make it better, so that it's less intrusive, so that it's less data that we're collecting, unless we absolutely need the data.
It's the reason why software is so important, because, well, if you can control it, basically, or if you can understand what it is possible of, or what is it capable of, what can it do, how you can access it, how you can manage it, it's an absolute must, so you can build this accountability. Because if you are not aware, where is, for example, your data center, or where is your some retention schedules, anything else, or even settings, basically, you cannot prove that you are accountable. So from your experience, what are the possible failures of privacy programs that are SaaS based, for basically, if you use, for example, some solution to manage your HR processes or everything else, what are the possible failures of privacy programs?
I think in my head, it's becoming very clear that there are kind of two sides to that question. There is the failure on the kind of customer's side, or the failures on the vendor side.
Yeah, I understand you. Yes.
On the customer side, I think the failures from a privacy perspective is not bringing it's that winning hearts and minds expression
Yeah,
of not
sure.
bringing the employees with you on this journey. Anton, you said journey, and I think journey is a really good way to describe it, because employers can put in place a lot of different tools to help the employees. And as we develop the solutions more in the future, whether it's generative AI, whether it's any other form of machine learning and automated decision making, we have to be able to explain to the employees what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. So I think from what I'm seeing, when you read kind of stories on LinkedIn, when you read articles in the press, it seems that a lot of companies are jumping on the AI bandwagon at the moment and not actually taking their employees with them on this journey. But I also think that the employers are struggling because they're not getting the right information from the vendors, and this is kind of where I think the vendors have a duty to do their homework, because they're not bringing the customer along on the journey. They're just saying, we're bringing this in. This is a new feature, a new module, a new add-on to the product. You don't need to worry about it. We'll continue to collect all your data that we need per the DPA that we've told you about, per our privacy notice, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, because the vendors haven't done their homework in terms of what is it that they're doing, why are they doing it, how are they doing it,
Educating their user, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing for me with privacy, I realized this a while ago, that actually, if you get privacy right, it's an enhancer. It enhances your reputation, enhances your reputation with your employees. Sorry, it definitely helps you sell yourself better. And so if you take privacy compliance seriously, it's not just a tick box exercise, it's not then it makes it makes it easier to sell, because customers buy into the fact that you're doing this with good intention and good at the right reasons.
And that they are kept in the loops, so they understand where they stand as well. And for me, basically, design is important because it is something that you can demonstrate, like let people touch and experience it. For example, if software provides some features that can be accessed from the outside, not by the HR people, for example, but the users, employees, basically, to review information that the organization have on you, or maybe just an interface for requesting something from your HR people data-wise. It helps understand and it helps trust, of course, but it also helps to feel in control, that you can monitor this image of you, because when we are working somewhere, we're working with people, and it's very important that the good design and good vendor solution helps you build trust and bridges between all these people that are working in your organization. So it's about uploading data, I believe. And Anton had a question about it, I know.
Okay, so yeah, great question from me. So you talked about a little about AI. Everybody talks about AI, and we all know that SaaS projects and other types of projects need data. And in a stage where we only try to persuade the user to buy something, to buy a subscription, and so on. So he leaves some footprints, footsteps on our websites. We feed him with cookies, with third-party cookies and so on, and then start to chase him or her into social networks on different websites with banners, even with some voice assistants at home and so on. So I don't know, what do you think of remarketing in terms of privacy? Maybe it's we are seeing now the end of this technology, because people just don't want to leave the data, and GDPR and all the rules will become more strict, and companies will not be able so easily to chase them into their own lives and so on.
I think there are a couple of things, and you raise an interesting point, because there is also the fact that Google have said they're getting rid of the third-party cookies, and there have been the various decisions across Europe with the different DPAs saying that you need consent rather than legitimate interest for cookie technology, or for tracking technologies, I should say. I think the other element that we need to factor into this is that you've got the whole kind of consumer legislation approach that you have in the US, where you have CCPA, Utah, Connecticut, Colorado, etc., where individuals have the right to opt out of this attribution and the ad tech space. I think there is a place for attribution. Having worked at Wayfair, as an e-commerce platform, they were very reliant on attribution. It helps them understand what they're selling, how they're selling, the user journey through the website. So there is a place for it. I think a lot of the problem comes from the lack of legislation. When you look at the fact that we've been waiting, what is it now, 6 years at least, for the e-privacy directive to be changed into an e-privacy regulation, and there's still no
solution.
Well, there's no vision that that's going to be turned into a regulation anytime soon anyway. So I think we're in a bit of a gray area at the moment, where it's kind of, there's the e-privacy directive, which doesn't quite address this stuff, and then you've got the IAB decision, that kind of focuses the mind, the Google technology piece that plays into it. But like I said, I think there is an element of needing some ability to see, you've looked at this couch, or you've looked at this car, and being able to kind of understand, how can we help you make your decision as a retailer? How can we help you make the decision? But I do think there has to be a boundary, because it gets creepy very quickly.
Yeah.
When you hear stories about people saying, "Oh, I was talking to my wife about X, Y, and Z, and then the next thing I know, Google serves me ads about X, Y, and Z," and it's just like,
Classics.
Yeah, it gets creepy, I think, a little bit. So it's a fine line I think we need to find.
Yeah, sometimes I like these tailor-made advertisements for me. I even can go on some websites, for example, to buy a toaster, and then I know that in the evening, when I will scroll my social media, I will see advertisements of other companies trying to sell me toasters. Yeah, not those, that one I visited earlier. And okay, it's for me, it's okay. So the truth is, if I don't want to get tailored advertisements, I just need to Google all things in incognito mode. But maybe it will help, maybe it will not. So it depends.
Well, there are other browsers you could use, right?
Yeah,
You could use
sure.
Brave or a few of the other browsers that don't track you, so don't allow the tracking. So, yeah.
Okay.
But it's a good marketing perspective as well, like creating browsers that the sole purpose of is like to protect you from tracking. But still, sometimes you understand that, well, advertisement and marketing in general is like lesser evil, because we need it to do business, basically. Because if we have a shop, we cannot rely only on local folk to buy everything with us. We have to reach wider audience, and this is where we need those ads. Sometimes it's quite hard to strike a balance between them, because we need them, and at the same time they're a nuisance for us. So it is, you were talking about remarketing, and I thought that, well, it's quite interesting, because we always have, as privacy folk, we always have all this trouble to allocate the data in different boxes. This one we collect based on your consent, this one we collect because we have a contract in place with you, and this one because of our legitimate interest. But how to understand, basically, that this legitimate interest is benefiting society as a whole, even if, for example, on our personal level, it is only a burden in essence. For me, it's always quite an exercise to draft a legitimate interest assessment, because you have to rely on a combination of statistical data, human reasoning, understanding, some privacy controls that you have in place. Do you have any experience or maybe any tips or life hacks that you could share with us?
For legitimate interest assessments?
I want to know, for example, how to navigate all this difference between you have a lot of data, basically, for example, in your HR system, you have a lot of them, and it's always collected on different legal purposes. Like this one because the law says us to, and this one because we think it will be safer for everyone if we collect this data about you. And sometimes there are some purposes that you are not really transparent because it can be, for example, not unethical, but it will be just. It will negate all the purpose. For example, security reasons. You may not explain, for example, everything. Why are you collecting this data for security reasons? Because, for example, you know that this person was a nuisance to other employees, for example, and you want to see them sometime to understand whether they're dangerous or not. So how to navigate all these legal grounds, how to explain to them, and, for example, how to convey this understanding to the employees.
Ideally, where you would, like in a perfect world, which
sure.
which I know doesn't exist, but you would have different databases based on the lawful ground or lawful basis of processing. And then you'd have a legitimate interest database, and all the data in the legitimate interest database would be subject to various different legitimate interest assessments because they're different use cases. You have a consent one, you have a vital performance of a contract, and so on. Essentially, you'd have 6 databases, right?
Yeah. So back to design stage, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you get 7 if you want to somehow rely on a derogation somewhere, but that's technicalities here.
Or one for Californians, you know.
Sure, absolutely. And but California is even more difficult because California is the only one that kind of covers both employment and consumers. Whereas if you look at all the other U.S. kind of privacy laws that have been,
they're focused on consumers, basically.
Consumers, exactly. I think more importantly though is really to navigate through and understand your data flows and understand your data uses. Because once you understand your data uses, and look, there's always going to be friction between the developers, the engineers, the data scientists, and the privacy and the legal folks, because the privacy and the legal folks 9 times out of 10 will be very conservative and say, you can't do that, or you can't do that, or you can't do that. But actually, I think there's a middle ground. I have a friend who I consider a mentor, and she always says the word no doesn't feature in privacy or in law. It's not no. From a legal professional or a privacy professional's perspective, we need to find a way to get our internal customers to yes. Now, it might take us more than 2 minutes to get you to yes. We might have to take a detour. It's not a straight line A to B kind of route. And it's making sure that when we get you to yes, your goal is here, but your goal might not take into account ethics, might not take into account laws, might not take into account contracts, et cetera, and reputation as well, because that's another bucket of interesting conversations there as well. But when you get to a place where we will get you to yes, but we need the time to assess, we need the time to work through it, and then we can find you a solution that gets you to where you want to get to. And I think that's where, for me, that approach is the one that it doesn't matter the lawful basis necessarily. What matters is, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And how can we get you to what you want to do, to the goal that you want to do? And so it becomes a grown-up conversation, right? Between the engineers, the data scientists, and the privacy and the legal folks, to make sure that we do things the right way.
That we are the team. We are not against each other. We are working together towards a solution. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So talking about some best practices and best practices that could be demonstrated to the users of SaaS projects. For example, let's imagine some great website of some SaaS solution, and it should be some European SaaS solution for our example. So there may be some, for example, DPA, a public DPA in place. There may be some other privacy assets on the website. What do you consider to be a good practice? What documents should we put on the website, like, okay, privacy policy, cookie policy? What's more, maybe could persuade the users that everything is okay with the privacy, and then they can entrust their data to this provider?
So again, thinking of perfect world, ideal world, whatever you want to call it, I think number one, the thing that seems to be coming through from a lot of the providers, especially the bigger providers, is some form of transparency site that talks about this is what we do and this is how we do it. This is how we secure your data. This is why we collect your data. I think that also needs to include some form of transparency with regards to law enforcement requests, because Max Schrems spent a lot of time fighting law enforcement requests. So I think there is a need to provide that information so people get comfort around how the data is shared with third parties. I think any certifications the vendor has, whether it's ISO, whether it's to the extent that they can, SOC certificates and so on and so forth, any certifications that can be provided. And then I think something a little bit more kind of, I think I'd call it squishy. It's not a very, a lot, when I look out in my LinkedIn, there are a lot of people that do privacy. There are a lot of people that do AI. There are a lot of lawyers. The ecosystem is huge in terms of the individual participants in the ecosystem. And so what would really help is for people not to be quiet and not to keep to themselves. Thought leadership is what comes to mind, where if you have a DPO in your business, make sure that DPO is able to talk at conferences, share their ideas, write blogs, write articles, even if it's just posts on LinkedIn. It kind of presents a view that you're thoughtful about the subject, you care about it, you're interested in it. And that then kind of reflects on the company as well, because the more people kind of share their thoughts and have open discourse and open dialogue, it kind of moves us forward, right?
It shows commitment as well.
Yeah, and it evolves the topic, and we come up with new ideas. Yeah.
So be loud on privacy practices.
Absolutely.
Let your DPO speak.
Yes, definitely. Speak, write. Yeah.
Yeah, it ensures that they have all the time to write correctly. So basically, and of course, it's important to show that they are interested in what they do, because it's not like they're only just compliance people that are like investigating something. They want to get to the root of the things, for example, or maybe create something new. So it's really important. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a valuable point. So we will be wrapping up everything. So just before we go, I only have one last question for you, if you don't mind.
No.
It's like a personal one. It's nothing really serious, or just imagine that talk, and you want to focus it only on top 3 pieces of advice. If you could choose only 3, what would you say?
We're talking privacy here, not privacy compliance, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Because
no, we will focus on privacy compliance right now. It will be TEDx privacy,
Okay, TEDx privacy. Okay, perfect. I think the first one would be know your data.
Mm-hmm.
The flows, the purposes, as we said, the hows, the whys, the whats. I think the second one for me, or sorry, the second one for me would definitely be document everything. Document everything you do. I know that lawyers don't like to document things, don't like to put things in writing unless they absolutely have to. But I think from a privacy perspective, when you're assessing, when you're making decisions, the more you can tell a story to the regulator or to a court to show this is the decision we took. This is the basis upon which that decision was made. Implemented that decision. I think it looks a lot more. It gives the regulator more confidence that you're trying to do the right thing. You're not just doing if you're not doing the right thing, you're at least trying to, and you're thinking. And then I think where those two kind of lead is the third piece, and that is trust. How would your customers, whether they're consumers or whether it's in the B2B space, how would they feel if you can pick a newspaper or a TV news outlet, whether it's Sky News, CNN, whatever, or the New York Times or Le Monde or whatever, report, front page headlines that your company has suffered a breach or hasn't done X, Y, and Z that they should have done from a privacy compliance perspective. How would your customers feel? What would they be doing first? And so they'd be pulling out if it's B2B, they'd be pulling out the data processing agreements out of the drawer and saying, how does that impact us? If it's consumers, what are the different implications for the consumers because you've caused them untold damage about to their identity. So I think it's trust. How do you build the trust with the individuals and with the customers to make them trust you with their data?
Yeah.
So
Really.
top 3 advice: know your data, be ready to storytell, and finally, show empathy.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
great.
thank you very much, Roy.
Yeah, great piece of advice. Yeah, you see, we are on this ongoing emerging technology changing our world every day, and yet we come back to basic principles like do the business in the right way, and all will be good. Something
Absolutely.
like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it was a delight to talk to you today. Thank you again for your time and participation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was good fun, and thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Surely see you again.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Bye.